We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Friday. Now, this show I'm recording earlier than I normally do, about 9 o'clock on Thursday night, to be played today, Friday. The reason I'm doing it earlier is because I got a big day tomorrow. I got a long day tomorrow. I've got to be over at my son's house at 8 o'clock, and I'm going to be solo watching my granddaughter for about 7, 8 hours. And then after that, my younger son and my wife are going to meet me there. And we're finally going to put together the Christmas for the five of us, my two sons, my wife and I, and my granddaughter. So it's going to be a long motherfucking day. I'm going to be working a double shift of my granddaughter. And some might think, well, he doesn't relish that idea. No, I do. I know, I do. I don't get that many opportunities just to hang out with my granddaughter alone. And since it is Friday, by the time you're listening to this, I'll already be ensconced in all kinds of 3-year-old activities, which will be fun. But when I get there, I'm debating whether or not I should proclaim this No Rules Friday. Because when grandpa and little girl get together, we're just going to have fun. Ain't no fucking rules. I'm sure I'll probably have to pull that back a bit. I know my wife is already thinking that I'm going to pull that game, so I'm sure she's going to have some directives. My son as well. But nonetheless, I'm going to spend a long day with my granddaughter. I'm looking forward to it. It's not the easiest thing in the world. I will tell you this, when I spend time with my granddaughter, I am fucking tired after that. She's constantly moving, constantly talking, and she wants you to be part of everything she does. She's got all these new toys, a playhouse and all that stuff. So we're going to be doing a lot of shit you wouldn't expect me to do, but it's okay. It's well worth it. Anyhow, I got something else on TikTok that was interesting, and I know a lot of you are going to groan when I say this, but don't worry about it. I had a guy come to one of my TikToks and comment and say, "I would debate you anywhere, any time regarding politics. So what about it, big mouth?" So I did a response TikTok and I said, "Dude, I love a good debate and I have the perfect spot for it right here on the Rational Boomer podcast. So if you really want to debate, I'm ready for you." I said, now, of course, we've had some other Trumplafucks come through the Rational Boomer podcast thinking the same thing you were thinking, and it didn't go too well for them. In fact, some of them, I don't even know where they are anymore. I've gotten some comments about Jeff HVAC, whatever the fuck his name was. People are saying they can't even find him anymore. I don't know if he got banned or he just took off. But when he left that and we talked afterwards, he seemed like a different guy. He was a little disheartened. Um, and this is the way with Republicans and Trumplafucks. They're bullies, and when they come at you, they expect to roll over the top of you. And when they don't know what to do. This is what Donald Trump is finding out. This is what all the other Republicans are finding out. The only tactic they have is a bully tactic. And when someone stands up to them and pushes back, they got nothing left. And since they're cowards at heart, they typically run. And so this guy, I put it out there. I have not heard back from him. And I know a lot of you are probably saying, "Oh, don't have a Trump-a-fuck back on." I'm not thinking I'm going to. I don't think this guy is going to respond. He's on TikTok. He's talking big. He's got 132 followers, and he has no videos. This guy's not going to come back. He's not going to come back and ask to be on. Now, it'd be fun if he was, but I just don't think he's going to do that. But I wanted to call him out when he said that because I'm really getting tired of Trump LaFuck saying all these things in the comments with no response. Typically, I just go block them. I'd love to respond to them, but there is really no value in it. I'd rather just block them and get them out of the way. This guy I haven't blocked yet, so we'll see what he does, and maybe he'll learn a lesson. You know, somebody actually calling him out and standing up to him. We'll just see how he responds. All right. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. Some interesting things happened yesterday. We have some emails too. So let's get to the emails. Hey, Boomer, Merry belated Christmas to you and the family and a happy upcoming New Year. Bring on 2024. Let's get this done. I agree. I've been listening to you nightly all through the holidays, as I do find you to be a very sane, calm, and yes, rational voice, something I need more of in my life, apparently. LOL. Anyway, I'm writing from Colorado, and this is my third time writing in. As you know, we have something to be proud of in Colorado, our Supreme Court. I like to think we're making up for our state's greatest shame, which is one Lauren Boebert. I'm happy about that, and I bet my Trump-loving in-laws will consider canceling their annual ski trip to Colorado next month because of it. Oh, darn. I've got stories about the Colorado situation and the 14th Amendment and Lauren Boebert coming up, so stick around for that. He goes on to say, on the topic of the Colorado court decision, I would like your take on something. I heard a legal analyst on another podcast mention that if SCOTUS upholds Colorado's decision and allows Colorado to keep Trump off the ballot, then other states will remove him too, but it's only going to be blue states, not the red states. So he could still technically win by just being on red state ballots. If he were the nominee, which is a big if, what's your take on that? I know you'll have one. Well, it's not necessarily going to be just all red states. It could be purple states. It could be, or all blue states. It could be purple states. It could be red states. It depends on what the Supreme Courts are and who the governor is and all this other stuff and what the legislature looks like. The bottom line is it's the optics of it. We've got a guy that is running for president, and state after state are saying we don't want him on the ballot. I was never one real strongly feeling strongly about the 14th Amendment and that would be the one thing that takes Donald Trump out. If you listened to the podcast yesterday, you heard Old Soul come up with a perspective that I hadn't thought of, where she thinks they should leave him on the ballot and let him get his ass kicked in 2024 so we can come to some closure on this shit. And she makes a good point. I don't know how it's all going to happen. I don't know if the 14th Amendment is going to be what takes him out. I don't know if they'll take him off all the ballots. But if the Supreme Court does side with the Colorado Supreme Court, it's going to have a significant effect. And there will be a number of states that take him off the ballot. We have a new one, which we'll be talking about very shortly. Lastly, I wanted to ask if you ever listened to John Fugelsang. I listen to his podcast on Spotify now and then, and I find him to be very funny, like you. He's also an optimist. He's funny like me. No, he's very funny, period. Like you, he's an optimist. He loves watching Republicans make fools of themselves and believes we should let them do it in a broad daylight. For example, he wants them to attempt Biden impeachment and didn't want them to expel Santos. I get that point of view. He's also a longtime radio guy like you, and he engages directly with listeners, also guests. So it's a recommendation if you haven't already heard him. That's all I have for now. Thanks for keeping me entertained and keep up the good work. Sincerely, Vicky. Well, Vicky, thank you. I have heard of Mr. Fugelsang. I haven't listened to his show, but I've seen his tweets, and he is a smart, funny guy. So now that you recommend it, I'll take a listen to it. I think I said this in a previous podcast. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. And it's not to say I don't like a lot of podcasts. I do. If I'm on a plane or on a long drive in my car, I'll listen to podcasts. But day to day, I'm kind of running around looking for stories and then digging up those stories. So I don't have the time to listen to full length podcasts, but I'll give it a listen. Sounds like an interesting guy. I love his tweets. Obviously, he does have a sense of humor and obviously has a similar perspective as all of us do. So thank you for the tip, Vicky. I will check it out. Hi, Mike. Apparently, there have been several Republican senators and representatives talking about how they need to prevent Dirty Diaper Donnie from being removed from ballots. One senator, Tom Tillis from North Carolina, wants to introduce a bill preventing any court except for the Supreme Court from deciding cases about removing candidates from the ballot. First of all, that isn't how our judicial system works. Second, I doubt they could actually pass it in the Senate, let alone would Biden sign it. Third, it couldn't be more clear that this is all for Trump and his base who don't actually know how government works. Yeah, the ironic thing about this is Republicans are all about states' rights. And in this situation, they want to take away states' rights. That's weird. That's kind of in line what they do. They love laws as long as they apply to Democrats, but they want to skirt the laws when they come back in their face. Uh, these aren't serious people. These aren't credible people. And the whole concept of passing a bill so that you got to have the Supreme Court decide it is ridiculous. It's in line with all these hearings about impeaching Joe Biden or trying to get Elvin Bragg or Fonnie Willis to address a subpoena. It's all bluster and bullshit. None of it's ever going to happen. It's not going to work. It's ridiculous. And why any media outlet would even take it seriously enough to report, I don't know. He goes on to say Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to issue something from a committee calling the southern border an insurrection. This is similar to what I was talking about in my last email. I bet she doesn't know the definition of an insurrection. I can almost guarantee you she doesn't know what it means, because what's happening on the southern border is not an insurrection. An insurrection is part and parcel of trying to overthrow the government. These people are just trying to save their lives. What happened on January 6th of 2021 was an attempted coup, and that is an insurrection. Speaking of Marjorie Taylor Greene, when I first heard about her getting swatted, I wondered if it wasn't a cover story for her getting searched by the FBI, even though it was Christmas. I wonder if the Jack Smith had finally started going after sitting members of Congress. I can't wait till he does. I'm sure he is terrified, or she is terrified of that day. Yeah, I don't know that it's cover because I'm hearing of other people getting swatted as well. I just read one and I can't remember who it was, but it was some dumb Trumplafuck. I find it hard to imagine that there are Democrats that would do that. That's not their style. That's a Republican style. You'll wonder if there aren't some Republicans doing it to try to create kind of a false flag on a small scale to blame it on Democrats. If that's what they're doing, that's pretty lame. And motherfucker, it's not working. Okay, he goes on to say on Kim Reynolds opting out of the summer food program. I was working on this email when you mentioned me having an opinion on this. I literally laughed out loud. This, of course, is Eric, who is in Iowa, who's been a guest on the program. Her wanting to opt out of this program tracks with other things her and Iowa Republicans have said about food assistance lately. They not only don't want to give families extra help in the summer, but also limit what can be bought. I haven't heard that they accomplished this, but they wanted to severely limit which foods can be bought with EBT or food stamps. The Republicans wanted to ban most fresh meats, some cheeses, and white bread. She already passed legislation adding another test about recipients' financial situations. They're trying to find any reason not to help people. Thanks, Eric. Now, if you're going to limit what you can buy with EBT or food stamps, I understand if you're talking about cigarettes or candy or some stuff that's not healthy, but fresh meat and cheese, that seems contrary to what the whole point of the program is. Let's just help people and not tell them how to live their fucking lives. All right, the next one comes up from Peg. She says, hi, Mike. I hope you and your family had a great Christmas. I'd buy a t-shirt if you decide to get them done. Would you consider donating any of the profits to the organization that Old Soul works for? Just a thought. Happy New Year, Peg HM, suburban Chicago. And that's an interesting idea. We talked about this, people asking about shirts and hats and stuff like that. And that's not really my thing. I'm not all that interested in it. I'm not looking to make money from that sort of thing. I don't really need to do that. So I suggested, well, if I ever did do it, maybe I would just take the profits and give it to a good cause. And what Peg is suggesting is the organization that Old Soul works with. These are the people that help out women that are in need of an abortion and they live in a state that um, outlawed abortion. If you've listened to Old Soul at all, you know that she's in Nevada and it's legal there. So women will come and stay with her as they're getting the procedure. Um, like I've always said, she not only talks the talk, she walks the walk. And Peg is suggesting that if we did T-shirts and then gave money to that organization, that might be a good idea. It might be. It might be. I'd be open to that. I'd be open to helping people get food too, whatever. If we were to do something like that. The problem is, in order to do that, I got to get off my ass and figure out how to do it. And I'm a procrastinator by nature. So I'll do what I can. I got to figure out the logo first. And then once I do that, the t-shirt and the hat thing's pretty easy. You just hook up with a company that does print on demand and we can easily do that. I will tell you this though, my gut on this, it's not going to be a huge moneymaker. You know, I have a limited audience, like anybody else does. Mine might even be more limited. We're not going to sell thousands of the t-shirts or the hats or anything like that. So it's not going to be a huge amount of money that I can imagine. But whatever, anything helps, I guess. All right, this one comes from Deb DZ from Delaware. Hi, Mike. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and all that jazz. This is just a quick email to give you an idea I had regarding your branded t-shirts. You said you didn't want to be making money off the shirts, but weren't sure what to do. Well, sounds like these two have been talking. If you wanted, you could have a certain amount donated to a group Old Soul supports for women's health. That way you would be making a contribution and it would go to a good cause. I think it's a win-win. Anyway, just a thought. Always keep doing what you do. We all love you. Hugs, DZ from Delaware. I told you we're all of a like mind, and these two women are thinking along the same way. We sell t-shirts and hats, whatever the profit is, we give it to the organization that Old Soul works with. I'd have to ask her about that. I will ask her about that. She'll be on next week, of course. And we'll see what we can figure out. But again, I have to figure out how to get the shit done. I've seen possible logos and it wasn't really what I was looking for. I'm just looking for something simple, something kind of retro. When I see it, I'll know it. I've had some experience um, picking out logos for companies and things like that. So I have something in my mind. I can't necessarily explain it, but I know it when I see it. All right, next up. Hey, Boomer, just saw your irritating video. He's not saying the video is irritating. That was the title on the video, irritating. He says, I agree with you. Tonight was an interesting night. I'm a jazz guitarist and had a gig with an old band leader of ours who also manages and partly owns a couple of wine bars here. He's a learned liberal, very experienced businessman, also a family man. We had a good conversation after the gig about the music biz, which eventually moved to politics. I discussed your point of view, and I basically explained that I agreed with it. His views were quite different. He's basically said DJT is going to get elected again. He basically said Biden's accomplishments mean nothing to the people. It's the people's perspective that still too much is wrong under Biden's prices. He said basically the Democrats' marketing sucks and are not communicating. He said that the people will vote Biden out because they feel he doesn't have the power to change things, that Biden in reality cannot deal with the forces of capitalism. Basically, Trump will close the border with troops and Biden just talks about it. As far as the court cases, he said that time is on Trump's side and they will go beyond the election and the very legal process will get him elected because Smith is basically stymied by the system and Trump will get past the charges. Wow. He feels it'll be a bad 4 years, but he will not become king because eventually he'll trash the country. It was a rather sobering evening, something to think about. I'm still confident he will not be president. My buddy here is very astute about these things. I feel we need to show up in droves at the polls. Thanks for your time and fantastic work, Boomer. Your thoughts, Z-Man. Well, Z-Man, you suggest this man is astute. I politely disagree. He sounds like a fatalist. He sounds like a lot of Democrats I listen to. Oh no, the world is going to end. He's pointed out all the things that Donald Trump allegedly has going for him, but he doesn't point out those things that are working against him, like 91 felony charges. And it doesn't matter whether they go beyond the election or not. That's a heavy toll on your shoulders. He's going to be in court virtually every day from March until the election. When is he going to run for the presidency? Where is he going to get the money from it? What's he going to do about all the evidence? See, a guy like this keeps talking like we've got nothing. And I don't know where he gets it from, other than maybe he's fatalistic and he's just all about the doom and gloom. I think everything he said is bullshit. I don't care if he's a friend of yours. If he said that to me, I would straighten that shit out. That's ridiculous. I don't buy any of the shit that he says, and he's wrong. He's wrong. He probably was worried that there was going to be a red wave in 2022. I'd be curious as to what his opinion there. See, this is the problem with Democrats. They hear things and they believe them. And you have to remember what I've told you in the past. A lot of what you hear is just Republican rhetoric, bullshit. They're out to try to scare you. And it sounds like this buddy of yours, Z-Man, is scared. Well, we don't have any time for scared motherfuckers in this movement. We need somebody who's confident and strong and going after these people. Nothing that gentleman said I agree with. And I'm not mad at him about it. What I'm mad about is how many people take that attitude, and it's completely without basis in fact. They're willing to give up. I've said this before and I'll say it again. If you take that attitude, why don't you go in the corner, curl up in the fetal position and cry, and we'll let you know when the shit is over. And then we'll point out how wrong you fucking were. Sorry to get all wired up about this, but when you're in a fight, we don't need people like this. We don't need people like this. They just hurt the effort and they are of no help. And if you don't want to be of help, get the fuck out of the way. So, see, say hi to him next time you see him. All right. Hi, Boomer. Good grief. You and Soul covered some ground today. In terms of Trump and his odor, you can smell him with your eyes. Just look at that putrid pile of sweating blubber. How in God's name could he not smell? I think you make a good point. As for his personal habits, it's visually obvious that he has a loaded diaper under his suit. Any parent knows what shape of a nasty full diaper takes under clothes, and it's what's in those images that we've all seen. We had twins, so I know diaper physics. I will say my granddaughter is currently potty trained. We're excited about that, but I've seen some diapers in my day. I had two sons that were rather large, and I got a granddaughter. I've seen my share of diapers. Donnie definitely looks like he's wearing an XXL diaper under that fucking $3,000 suit. The email goes on. My theory is that he's so narcissistic and lazy that he thinks it's okay to do that. Probably started on a golf course where it's not always easy to find a bathroom. And then he thought, hell, I could just do this everywhere. I don't think it's the drugs or early training. He reminds me, this part of it reminds me of the story. Remember that woman who was an astronaut and she killed somebody, a boyfriend or something like that, and she was going across the country in a car and she didn't want to stop, so she outfitted herself with diapers to save time? Maybe you're right. Maybe that's what Donald Trump is doing. Anyway, the email goes on, but whatever the nastiness level is, I got $1,000 that says Alina Habba found a way to withstand it, even under extreme conditions, if you know what I mean. I don't even want to imagine that. In the discussion of Scott Perry that branched into wondering why these people go so outside the law, it's easy to see how they got swept into it. They were operating on behalf of the president, and as much as we like to discount that smelly fuck, Trump is a master level at corrupting those around him. He's the Michael Jordan or Jack Benny of that. Soul cracked me the hell up twice this time. After doing some insightful analysis, Alina Haba, she capped it with a quick street-level summary. She's getting over. That's all. Then later, when you asked her regarding DeSantis, explain as a woman how she stopped you mid-sentence to say, I can't. I can't. That about slayed me. That was about an entertaining and kind of relaxing holiday week episode between the two of you. I'm not worried at all. Thank you both. Best Garage Door Jeff. And I know that Old Soul was anxious to hear from Garage Door Jeff. She knew it was coming. P.S. Ted Macho Man Cruz has a build that my 6'1", 225 pounds of muscle son describes as skinny fat, wherein somebody is simultaneously both of those. That tickles me. No offense to anyone built that way. Ted's the epitome of that phrase. All right. Another email. Hello, Mike. Listening to you in Old Soul right now on a cold Las Vegas morning. Interesting you should say that because Old Soul's in Las Vegas too. I'm glad you're feeling better and have some on-air support. Old Soul is very informed and compliments your show. Kind of like Howard Stern and Robin Givens. Yeah. I'm an old white guy and she's a younger black woman. I get that comparison, but other than that, I don't know. I appreciate the compliment, assuming that's what it was. The topic, DJT being removed from the ballot. My opinion is good. The man is a criminal, a traitor, and he has never been qualified to hold the office of POTUS. You say he has to get rejected by the voters in election for MAGAs to be convinced that he lost. It didn't work the last election. I say when he is convinced of most of his crimes in a public court, they will see he is a fraud and reject him themselves. I can live with that. The so-called great people he hires are just vultures circling over the body of a dying orange turkey. They are going to pull out the still juicy parts and leave the rest for the blowflies and the maggots. That's making me feel a little cringe. As far as the yellow belly Republican Party that allowed themselves to be infected with the fascist mindset, they should go live in the valley of the fascist lepers until the disease takes out the old and weak-minded, at least 2 generations. They didn't even have the balls to give him a Caesar's Senate death by stabbing. What pathetic losers. Sorry for being so historic in my opinion of punishment. That's all from me. Thanks for listening. Have a safe and informative new year. I appreciate you. Your loyal listener, Faye. Thank you, Faye. I appreciate it. I appreciate it immensely. You make some good points. And you know, what Old Soul says, I get the point and I agree with her in the sense of the point she's trying to make. I don't necessarily agree with the outcome. You heard us on the show. I personally think the Supreme Court is just going to leave it alone. It's going to go through state. And I never really thought the 14th Amendment would be the thing that takes Donald Trump down. That said, when it comes to trials, when it comes to the 14th Amendment, there needs to be a separation between politics and the law. And regardless of what would be better in the end, if the law finds him guilty, they need to punish him. If states find that he's not qualified to be on the ballot, they should take him off. Whatever it does to get him away from the narrative, out of the equation, I'm for it. You know, after the fact, we'll deal with whatever we have to deal with. I don't know that we can hope and pray for the best possible outcome. We just need him gone, and we need the Republican in their place. I mean, I understand what Old Soul said, but if we take him out of the equation and then kick the Republicans' ass in 2024, the same thing is going to work. Because that's when the Republican Party will finally realize that they made a bad choice and that they're going to have to make some changes. I think no matter which way we do this, it's going to work out to our benefit. I think the Republicans are going to finally realize that they're losers and their strategy is not working and they're going to have to change. Thank you, Faye. Last email goes, hello, Mike, loyal listener here. I never miss a show. This morning, while listening to your show with your wonderful and intelligent guest, Old Soul, you made reference to Ron DeSantis's military service. While you were saying that he was the person that handed the urine sample to the technician, it reminded me of a scene in a Mel Brooks movie, History of the World Part 1. I will from now on call DeSantis Piss Boy. Thank you for another informative show, Eddie. Thank you, Eddie. I think that's an astute perspective. I think that's what Ron DeSantis is. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I was going to say one thing before we take a break here. I did a TikTok about this. I think we can all agree that the Trump-a-fucks are in a cult. Now, when these folks hear that, they will say, we're not in a cult. You're just in a cult. You know, I know you are, but what am I? But I wanted to make and give an illustration as to why they are, in fact, in a cult. When we look at this primary situation for the Republicans, think about this. At Tim Scott. Tim Scott was in the running as much as he could be, but ended up having to drop out. And why? Well, it was because he wasn't married and they were afraid he might be gay. And then Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis seemed the heir apparent, but once they got to know him, they go, holy fuck, this is a weirdo. This is an awkward guy. Now he's headed out the door. Nikki Haley, and we'll talk more about this story, but Nikki Haley decides she can't answer the question properly as to what caused the Civil War. Now she's hanging by a thread. It just took little things to take people out of the mix or at least damage them, okay? But Donald Trump talked about grabbing women's genitals, was accused of raping or sexually assaulting 26 women. He stole documents, presumably gave those documents to our adversarial countries. He screamed misogynistic, anti-Semitic, and racial epithets. He lied in court. He's defamed women. He's been found liable of rape in court. Yet all these motherfuckers still love him. They still think he's the Messiah. So no matter what Donald Trump does, they're on his side. That is the essence of a cult. That is the quintessential cult. So if you try to tell me you're not in a cult, bullshit. It's a fucking cult. All right. We will take a quick break and we will be right back. In spite of the fact that we're essentially in a holiday week, the week between Christmas and New Year's is always kind of dead for business, in news. We do have some stories to talk about and some good news at that. Maine's top election official has removed former President Donald Trump from the state's 2024 primary ballot in a shock decision based on the 14th Amendment's insurrectionist ban. Now, this makes Maine the second state to take Donald Trump off the ballot. Maine Secretary of State Shenna Bellows paused her decision pending in a potential appeal in state court, which Trump's team said they intend to file. Of course they do. The decision makes Maine the second state to disqualify Trump from office after the Colorado Supreme Court handed down its own stunning ruling that removed him from the ballot earlier this month. The development is a significant victory for Trump's critics, who say they're trying to enforce constitutional provisions that was designed to protect the country from anti-democratic insurrectionists, which is what Donald Trump truly is. You know, frankly, there are some representatives and senators that might fall in that category. And it'll be interesting to see if this works for Donald Trump, if they don't impose that on some of these other politicians. We'll see what happens. Now, this is an interesting development. You have to understand there's a difference between Maine and the way they process things as opposed to Colorado. Colorado, they went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court decided it. Now we're waiting to hear what the U.S. Supreme Court has to say about it. In the case with Maine, the person who decides this is the Secretary of State, the Shenna Bellows. She's a Democrat, as you might imagine. And based on what she knows about this situation and based on what the Constitution says, she's taking him off the ballot. Now, what happens next is it has to go to Superior Court, not the Supreme Court at first. It goes to Superior Court. If they uphold that, or actually either way, if they uphold it or they deny it, it will then be appealed to the state Supreme Court. And then depending on what the state Supreme Court does, it may go to the U.S. Supreme Court. But if they've already decided what's going on in Colorado, if that decision has come down, then it wouldn't go there. It would just follow in line with what the Supreme Court has already decided. Now, does this absolutely mean that Donald Trump will be off the ballot? I don't know. But the point is that there's a certain amount of momentum being created. One state takes him off the ballot, another state takes him off the ballot. I mean, whether he's off the ballot or not, when it comes down to it, it's publicity and it's an image that Donald Trump does not want, that some states just don't want the motherfucker. Donald Trump likes to be the most popular guy in the room, and he's not. And these kinds of decisions illustrate that. And there's something else you have to understand too. And I think a lot of people are missing this. These decisions about being on the ballot, this is just regarding the primary, not the general election. I mean, because he's not the nominee yet. If he becomes the nominee, well, then maybe they will take it to the federal level, or not the federal level, the presidential level, the actual general election. I don't know what's going to happen with all this stuff. All you can do is sit back and watch. I'm not going to be disappointed either way it goes. I just like the fact that this noise is being created and it's all negative against Donald Trump and Republicans. This is not doing them any good. This kind of imagery is going to be a problem for them when you're dealing with independent or moderate independents or moderate Republicans. They're not going to like this. And they're going to question Donald Trump, which is going to make it that much more difficult for him to be elected to anything. As I've said, I don't agree that he could ever win the election in 2024. This guy was talking to one of our emailers that said he will win. I would love to sit down with this guy and ask him, based on what? Based on what could Donald Trump win? His base is maybe 30% of the country at most. That's not enough to win. Donald Trump has felony charges. He's been impeached twice. He's got all kinds of trials he's going to go through. What is it that tells you he's going to win? There is nothing. And to say something that like that is reckless and stupid and fatalistic. Now, Bellows wrote, I do not reach this conclusion lightly. Democracy is sacred. I'm mindful that no Secretary of State has ever deprived a presidential candidate of ballot access based on Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. I'm also mindful, however, that no presidential candidate has ever before engaged in insurrection. She makes a good point there. Donald Trump and the Republicans will say, nobody's ever done this to a president before. No, that's true, but no president has ever done the shit that Donald Trump has done. It makes sense that if you go to extremes like Donald Trump has, you're going to have some extreme ramifications. Now, most legal experts believe the U.S. Supreme Court will settle the issue for the entire country. That seems to be the case. Still, Maine's decision on the momentum that Trump's critics have claimed after the Colorado ruling. Before Colorado, several other states like Michigan, Minnesota rejected similar efforts. Ratified after the Civil War, the 14th Amendment says American officials who engage in insurrection can't hold future office. But the provision is vague and doesn't say how the ban should be enforced. So there are a lot of people say, well, we'll just write him in anyway. Well, the law doesn't say he can't run for re-election. It just says he can't hold office. So run all you want, write in all you want. But even if he was to win, and he won't, but even if he was, he can't take office. Now, in a statement Thursday, Trump campaign spokesman Steve Chung accused Bello of being a virtual leftist who has now decided to interfere in the presidential election. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, when Trump got a hold of this on Thursday, got the news that the Maine's Democratic Secretary of State nixed the former president's state's presidential primary ballot under the Constitution insurrection clause, the state-based development head Richard Nixon attorney John Dean saying Trump's in trouble. But MAGA loyalists and right-wing pundits didn't take the news very well. Oh, big surprise. The Trump campaign itself said the decision is all part of Joe Biden's attempted theft of an election and the why can't I say that? Disenfranchisement of the American voter. Former GOP staffer Mike Davis said after the ruling that Democrats are simply taking Trump off the ballot because they're in full panic mode. No, we're not. We're winning, motherfucker. We're just going to take you apart one by one in every way we possibly can. Nobody's panicking. Your boy can't win. They impeached Trump twice for nonsense. No, actually, that's not the case. And indicated Trump indicted Trump 4 times for non-crimes. Yeah, that seems to be a stretch. They unconstitutionally gagged Trump twice. That backfired. Trump is beating Biden like a drum. Biden's not been indicted. Biden's not been gagged. Biden's not under investigation. Biden doesn't have court cases coming up. Biden doesn't have a lawsuit that's going to take all his money away. How is Biden being beaten like a drum? Now, in a separate post, Davis said Maine Secretary of State Shenna Bellows was guilty of an outrageous abuse of power. An unconstitutional power grab, he said. The MAGA War Room account managed by Make America Great Again also chimed in. This is the radical anti-Trump Democrat that just removed President Trump from the ballot in Maine. Former Donald Trump physician and current Rep. Ronnie Johnson had an all-caps meltdown from the decision, which will ultimately find its way to the Supreme Court, according to experts. This is what Ronnie wrote, and Ronnie is a dipshit. There is no question about it. Election interference. Maine Secretary of State Shenna Bellows is a disgrace to the country. Their only chance at winning is rigging the election, the lawmakers shouted. Trump will be back in the White House. We will make America great again. GOP Congresswoman Elise Stefanik also issued a press statement calling the action illegal and corrupt. So you think the Democrats are in panic mode. You're the one screaming in your tweets. You're the one yelling and screaming, making stupid claims, lying flat out, trying to incite the crowds of idiots that found their way to the Capitol on January 6th, but have stayed home as of late. Yeah, this is what the Republicans do. They're in panic mode, so they accuse us of being in panic mode. I don't know. I'm not panicked. I know exactly what's going to happen. And it's not good news for Donald Trump or the Republicans. So keep whining and crying. Keep making excuses. It may have worked when Donald Trump was president. Ain't working no more. You're not going to win. Donald Trump is never going to be in office again. And all you dumb fucks may be on the hook for indictments yourself. I saw a clip from Fox News and I found it interesting. I think it was Jesse Waters. And when he was talking about this Maine disqualifying Donald Trump from the ballot, this is what he said. He said, well, it's like the Democrats are asking for violence, or asking for a civil war. See what that is? That's bullying again. Oh, you better watch out. You keep doing this stuff, there's going to be trouble. Really, Jesse, where's the trouble? You said that when Donald Trump got indicted in New York. Nothing. You said that when he got indicted in Florida, his home state. Nothing. You said that when he got indicted in Washington, D.C. Nothing. Where's all these tough guys that you talk about? Where are they? Where are they? Why aren't they showing up? You know why? Because they're like all of you. They're scared little pussies and they aren't going to come out. You guys have talked tough for so long, but you got the worst possible situation. You got people like me and all these other people that listen to the podcast saying, fuck you. We're pushing back. And that's the last thing you can handle from Democrats. You aren't expecting it. You are surprised by it. And now you don't know what to do because at the core of your heart, you're fucking cowards. You don't want to fight. There is no violence to be had because you guys don't have the balls to do it. All right. I talked about Nikki Haley earlier, and Nikki Haley is in the shit. People were looking to Nikki Haley as a savior for the Republican Party. And I think they look to her because Donald Trump is going down the shitter. They know that. If they didn't know that, they wouldn't be getting behind Nikki Haley. They know Ron DeSantis is going down the shitter. Again, they wouldn't do that um, if they were getting behind Nikki Haley. But Nikki Haley has a problem. People like to think she's the more normal Republican. And let's be honest, she's not the normal Republican. She is a Trump humper at heart. She supported everything Donald Trump did or said. She was in Donald Trump's administration as the ambassador to the UN. She's the one that stood up on the debate stage and was asked, if Donald Trump were convicted of a crime, would you still vote for him? And she said yes. She's not normal. She's not a good person. She wasn't a good governor and she won't be a good president. But that's not going to be a worry because she has little or no chance. She's not even close to Donald Trump. And she doesn't even know how to run a race. You've got one guy far ahead, you've got some support. So what do? You avoid going after the front runner. Well, I'll tell you this, Nikki, you can't win an election being on defense all the time. You can't win an election if you're afraid, and you are terribly afraid of Donald Trump and the MAGA group. You don't want to upset them. Here's what I'm going to tell you, Nikki. You can't win if you're in the general election. That goes without saying. Maybe you get the nomination, but I doubt that too. You're not strong enough and you make stupid mistakes. And she just made a stupid mistake. Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley's inability to acknowledge slavery as the central cause of the Civil War at a New Hampshire town hall may deal a death blow to her surging campaigns as she chases Donald Trump for the 2024 presidential nomination. That was said by an expert. I don't know who the expert was. Somebody asked her flat out, what do you believe was the cause of the Civil War? She seemed startled by that. She wasn't expecting that question. And it looked like she had trouble coming up with an answer for it, which is weird because it's a real easy question. What was the reason for the Civil War? It's easy. It was about slavery. The Northerners didn't want it. The Southerners did. And that's what we had. That's why we had a conflict. More Americans died in that war than any other war in history because both sides, it was Americans. But she wouldn't say that. She would not acknowledge the fact that slavery was the issue. Instead, she did what other white supremacists do, people who want to change history, and they go out and they say, well, it was a matter of states' rights. The federal government shouldn't be able to tell states what to do. Okay, that's part of it. But the issue here was slavery. Why are you afraid to say slavery? Why? Because MAGA will get mad about it. They want to burn books that suggest slavery was bad. You want to argue whether slavery was good or bad? They want to tell us how it was good for people of color with slavery. Fuck you. It was bad. It was a horrible mistake. It is a stain on this country, but we've got to acknowledge our bad as well as our good. and Republicans, the white supremacist, which is one and the same, don't want to talk about it. Well, too bad. It's there. It's the elephant in the room. So Nikki was in Berlin, New Hampshire on Wednesday. The Republican was asked by a potential voter about the battle between the states that started on in her home turf of South Carolina, and she attempted to explain it away as a conflict over freedoms of what people could and couldn't do. Yeah, but what you wanted to do was fucking inhumane. That led to a back and forth with her questioner, who pressed her. In the year 2023, it's astonishing to me that you answer that question without mentioning slavery. Now she's nervous. If you've seen the video, she's nervous and a little confused. She says, "What do you want me to say about slavery? How about that you don't like it?" That led to Morning Joe regular Jonathan Lemire and MSNBC contributor Jennifer Palmieri to shake their heads at the unforced blunder. "Jen, this shouldn't have been hard," Lemire prompted his guests. "Slavery is the answer here. It's reflective of where the Republican base is right now. They can't tell a simple truth for fear of losing voters in what has become such a radicalized Republican Party." He later added that this could blunt some of her momentum. "Iowa's been hard for her, but going into New Hampshire, she didn't have the wind at her back. Maybe this cost her." "It's breathtaking," Palmieri contributed. "I had read the transcript, but I had not actually seen it. It's just breathtaking when she says, 'What do you want me to say about slavery?' How about that you're against it?" This is her campaign in one question, right? It is like, who do you want me to be right now? Who do I need to morph into in order to never take Trump on, but be acceptable enough to sort out the MAGA majority? And this is absolutely the truth. She wants to ride the fence, but she's in a head to head competition with Donald Trump. As long as she doesn't want to attack Donald Trump, she's never going to get anywhere. But the whole Republican Party is so fucking dysfunctional. The one guy that is going against Trump, they don't like him. See, there's a no win situation here. You go after Trump, you lose. You don't go after Trump, you lose. So why are you doing this? Why are you even in the race if you're not willing to go full in? Nikki probably has some problems. And the fact of the matter is, Nikki's a weak politician. This is only the first of many things that she'll be exposed with, because she's doing everything she's doing based on fear. And when you're based in fear, you cannot win. You can't win. That's why when I was talking about the emailer earlier, that's no attitude to have. If you're not confident, then you're not part of the team. And don't tell me you're a Democrat, because you don't talk like a Democrat. And with Nikki Haley, don't tell me you want to win the primary, because you ain't acting like it. Now let's go to a dumb shit. Not that Nikki Haley isn't a dumb shit, but this one's worse. One constituent of Representative Lauren Boebert of Colorado is attacking her former lawmaker for abandoning us after she decided to ditch her third district order in order to run in the more GOP safe haven 4th district. Did you hear this? Lauren Boebert in the last election almost lost to the Democrat. I mean, it was by the skin of her teeth. Now, Lauren's done some fucked up shit since that time, in that year and a half or so since that election. And, like groping a guy in a crowded theater, stuff like that. That usually works against you when you're campaigning for a position in the House. So anyway, the race was close last election. Now this same Democrat is going up against her in this election. The only thing is this Democrat has raised an incredible amount of money, far more than Lauren Boebert ever raised. So she's getting nervous. She's seeing that she might lose. Now you remember hearing about Representative Ken Buck retiring from Congress. So what she's now doing, because Ken Buck's district is a stronger Republican district, and she feels like she has a better chance of winning there. I disagree, but that's what she's thinking. She's trying to do anything, pull out the stops so she can keep a job because she doesn't do too well on her own. So anyway, she's going to move to this district. What she has to do is uproot her family, move them to another district across the state, and then go into that district and run for election there. She's basically abandoning the district she's been representing for the last 4 years. And now she's going to go to this other district only because she thinks she can have an easier time winning there. And I don't know that that's true. I mean, I would think no matter where you go in Colorado, people are embarrassed of Lauren Boebert. They think she's a buffoon. They think she's an idiot and probably don't want her to represent their district. So now she's going to go to this new district. And if I had the best of all situations to happen, she moves to the district, uproots everybody, and then she's in a primary there because presumably there would be another Republican that also wants to run in that district. The best thing would be she goes through the primary and loses to the other Republican and is not even in the general election. I have a feeling no matter how Lauren Boebert wants to game this situation, she's going to be without a job in 2024. Ain't no question about it. She's going to be without a job. She's fucked up too much. She's embarrassed too many people. She's got too many problems, and people are tired of her bullshit. Now, Lou Cameron, who boasts nearly 9,500 followers on Getter, posted a video on December 28 expressing her unbridled disgust toward her carpetbagging congresswoman, claiming she's running away like a scared little bunny rabbit from a tough race in a purple district and abandoning us because she can't take the heat. Now, this is coming from a Republican, a conservative Republican. Cameron protested as if she were speaking directly to Boebert. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "Get your ass back home and defeat Adam Frisch." Now, as I said, Frisch, who lost to Boebert in 2022 by less than 1 point, has already spiked the political football and taken credit for invoking fear into Boebert's reelection campaign. Can you imagine what a boost that gives Frisch's campaign? Yeah, Boebert's so afraid of me, she just blew town. He says Boebert is running scared even before the Beetlejuice debacle that embarrassed her constituents. Our campaign was polling ahead of Boebert because voters saw that we were showing up in their communities and appreciate the hard work, authenticity, sincerity, and independence that this campaign embodies. Now, Cameron piled it on, labeling Boebert a sellout and comparing her actions to those of a grifter whose primary concern is to get herself reelected. You're just finding this out? Well, I guess it's better late than never. She also suspects Boebert doesn't want to be broke. She lost her restaurant and divorced her husband. And, I'm not sure if she has any source of income outside her congressional salary, said Cameron. So that's what it's all about. She's just trying to save her job. She thinks she's so popular that she's entitled to just keep collecting your taxpayer money. And frankly, I think this woman nails it on the head. It's hard to win anything when you're running away, when you're on the run. Now, I said something on one of the TikToks. And I said, we have the Republicans on the run. We need to chase them, finish them, put them down for good. And of course, a Republican comes back and says, "Oh, you're advocating violence." No, motherfucker, that's not what I'm talking about. That's a Republican point of view. It's not my point of view. What I mean when I say that is we need to run them into the ground with the campaigning, electorally bury them. Because in 2024, when they get buried, the Republicans are going to have to stand up and go, "What happened?" They can't deny it anymore. They should know they're losing by now, but it will be that election that puts them back on their heels and say, we got to do something different. And when I say putting down the Republican Party, that's what I mean. Defeat them for the last time. take everything away from them, make them take a look at what they've been through and realize they've lost at every turn and that they need to change things. We need to rid this country of the Republican Party as we know it. Now, that's not to say there won't be another Republican Party that doesn't resemble this one, that is maybe more conservative and maybe more normal. I suspect that's what will happen, but it's going to take a long time for them to come back. They've created a lot of bad will. They don't look good. And when I say put them down, I mean electorally in 2024, a blue tsunami just devastating them, because then they're lost. All right, we're about ready to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I just wanted to mention this story. CNN's Marshall Cohen on Thursday detailed exclusive reporting on pro-Trump election lawyers Kenneth Chesebro, revealing new details to Michigan prosecutors about the 2020 Trump campaign's efforts to use fake electors to overturn the 2020 election. Chesebro was indicted alongside Trump in the Georgia election case, but has since pleaded guilty to one felony count and accepted a plea bargain. Now, Brianna Goldriga introduced the new reporting, saying, "We start with breaking news in our law and justice lead. CNN has obtained exclusive recordings that reveal a chaotic last-ditch effort by former President Trump's campaign to get fake elector ballots to D.C." Yeah, they were a little frantic leading up to January 6th. They had to get those fake electors there. Turns out, didn't do them any good. The plan involved a haphazard chain of messengers, staffers for two sitting Republican members of Congress, and talk of even chartering a private jet. All of this was to ensure the fake ballots from Michigan and Wisconsin got to the Capitol in time for the Electoral College certification on Jan 6th. Emails and recordings show new context in the dizzying scope of the unsuccessful fake electors plot, Goldriga said as she introduced Cohen. He says, "Hey, Brianna, we've known bits and pieces of this story, but now we're getting the full picture." And it comes from Ken Chesebro, who in many ways was the architect of the fake electors plot. CNN has obtained recordings of his recent interview with Michigan investigators and hundreds of emails that he also turned over. They are revealing the last-minute scramble on the eve of January 6th to get those fake electors' certificates to Washington, D.C. Now, this was on the tape. The general counsel, the Trump campaign, is freaked out that Roman reported that Michigan votes are still in the sorting facility in Michigan, which doesn't look like they're going to get to Pence in time. So the general counsel of the campaign was alarmed and was chartering. They didn't have to charter a jet, but they did commercial. This is like, yes, so this is a high level decision to get the Michigan and Wisconsin votes too. And they had to enlist, a U.S. senator too, to try to expedite it and try to get it to Pence in time. You remember the story where a list of those electors was handed to Ron Johnson, a Wisconsin senator. He had it in his hands, and then he said, no, 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 we don't want this. And he says he wasn't involved because he only held on to it for a few seconds or a few minutes. What is there when you're committing a crime? Is there the 5-second rule there too? You have to wonder. So anyway, remember, they needed to get those ballots to the House floor because they wanted Mike Pence to throw out Biden's real electors and replace them with Trump's fake electors. So in the end, the campaign didn't need to charter a jet. Staffers booked a last-minute ticket on commercial flights, and they ferried those ballots to Washington, D.C. on January 5th. Once they got to D.C., there was a series of handoffs and couriers that even included some help from Senator Ron Johnson, as I pointed out. Those ballots eventually reached the U.S. Capitol in time, but Pence's team said they didn't want him. He refused to go along with the plan, Cohen added. Fascinating new detail. Marshall, how does this all factor into Jack Smith's criminal case against Trump? He said, factors in a lot. It's going to be a problem for Ron Johnson, Donald Trump, the Republicans. See, this is the thing I've said before. There's a lot of evidence that we know, but there's a lot of evidence we don't know. It's going to be coming to light over the next year leading up to the election. There's going to be some devastating information that comes out. All of this will have an impact on the election. This is why when I hear people say, "Oh, nothing's going to happen and Donald Trump will win," you have no fucking clue what you're talking about. You're not watching what's going on. You can't critically think, and you can't look at logic and common sense. This kind of stuff is going to come out with some regularity over the weeks and months and the year to come. This is all going to have a devastating effect on the Republican Party and their ability to win in 2024. So, anyway, we're going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I hope you have a great day. I'm having a good day. As you're listening to this, I'm probably playing battling Bluey with my 3-year-old granddaughter, and that's going to be fun as hell. So, so anyway, I hope you have a great day. I'm going to have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.